Hey friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I'm Frederick and I'm happy to have you here today. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the architectural patterns in .NET, and that is clean architecture. Have you heard of it before? Do you actually know what is it? Then stay tuned, because this video is going to help you a lot to let you get the basics of it and how to implement it in your application. Before I dive into this, I do offer coaching or training sessions for people who are interested in .NET technologies, talking about Blazor, Mari, and Mari Blazor Hybrid, and also Web API services. If you want to write to me, check this video description, and I have an email there. You can write to me through it. The source code of this project also be available, so check this video description, and you can have access to this. So the question is, what actually is clean architecture? Clean architecture is a software architectural pattern introduced by Robert C. Martin, also known as Uncle Bob. I believe you've heard of this name before, Uncle Bob. Now, what does this architecture aims to? It aims to create maintainable, scalable, and also testable software by emphasizing separation of concern and dependency inversions. Although this is not specific to .NET, but we can implement this in .NET as well. So in this video, we're going to look at how do you implement this clean architecture in .NET. There are many presentations on this clean architecture or this Uncle Bob architecture in .NET. Now I'm going to give you one. Now this clean architecture has basically 4 layers. 4 layers. So what are the layers? We have the domain layer, we have the application layer, the infrastructure layer, and we have the presentation layer. So the domain layer, it is an innermost layer that houses the core business logic, talking about your models and your entities. The application layer acts as an intermediary between the domain layer and the outer layer, and it defines the use cases and also orchestrates the flow of data and the business logic. So the application layer needs the domain layer to work with. The main layer, it is independent. Application layer depends on the domain layer. Also, the infrastructure layer, this contains the implementation details required to support the application. So with this, the infrastructure layer depends on the application layer. The application layer contains all the contract, the interfaces, and with this interface, the implementation can be found inside this infrastructure layer. There comes in the last one, that's the presentation layer. This layer serves as an entry point of the application, and this can be a web UI, an API, .NET Mari project, it could be web API project, it could also be Blazor Hybrid project, and etc. Okay. So let's put all I've said into practice, and now let's see it practically. All right, so I'm going to create a project here, and first of all, I'm going to create a new blank solution for this. Then this is going to be demo. Let's say this make clean architecture. Okay, so now let's click on create to get this project created. Okay, so we are going to add these 4 layers. Okay, the first layer that we need to add, these are all classes. So right click on solution, then we click on add new project, and in that we need a class library. So this is going to be domain layer. So let's make this a domain layer. Let's also create another one, and this is going to be the application layer. Solution, right click on the solution, click on add new project, and in here the same class, and that is an application layer. Now we need to create the next one, and that's the infrastructure layer. So we have our infrastructure layer in here. The last one here, it is a presentation layer. Now the presentation layer, it could be that we're going to have a web API. We're going to also have a Blazor WebAssembly or .NET Mari or any other presentation project, right? So in that, we can add a solution folder here. So we put all of these projects under one, and we can say this is presentation layer. Then let's add this project, and we're going to choose web API. So let's say this is web API. Let's add this. Then we can also add maybe WebAssembly to this. So right click on this presentation. Now let's also add. So you can add number of projects that you want as a presentation to this. So we're going to add WebAssembly. Now let's click on create. So you can see that our presentation layer, we have 2 projects which have been added. And now these projects are going to consume the layer that have been defined in here. But the next question is, maybe you're asking yourself, why is it necessary that, or is it a must that all the time I should use these names? No. You can modify, you can customize this name, okay? But you must follow this pattern. If you want to use clean architecture in .NET, you must follow this pattern, but the names could be changed. But for the purpose of this project, for you to get understanding, I am just renaming it as you can see in the layers, okay? Proposed by the Uncle Bob. Yes, okay. Now, with this, what's the next thing to do? Let's assume we're going to create a database. We're going to have something like customer CRUD on customer, okay? So create, read, update, and delete on customer, whereby we're going to have database connection and the whole stuff. And aside from that, we're going to look at how to consume this inside the Blazor WebAssembly. Okay, so it's going to be a complete one for you. All right, now you can see we have some classes, default ones. Let's quickly clean them up because this we don't need them. Okay, so in our web API, we have this WebAssembly tool. We also have this. So now, first thing I'm going to do here is we want to run the web API first. So let's set this as startup project. Okay, so as you can see, and now let's start this app. But before that, we have to build the whole project. So let's build them so that in case we do have some dependencies as NuGet packages, we can just restore them before we build them or before you run it. Okay, so right click on solution, now click on build solution, and let's see if you're going to build all these 4. That is 5 projects, but we have 4 now because a folder contains 2 projects. So we classify this as 1 project, isn't it? That's a presentation layer. So 4 layers, but 5 projects. Yeah, so you can see 5 builders successfully. Now let's see. So within this, we've set this to web API setup. Let's run this. That's right. So you can see that our web API is working. As you can see from here, it is still working. Now let's close this. Let's also set the WebAssembly as startup, and let's run that too, and check it out. So startup. Now let's run this too, and as you can see, it is also running perfectly. So we have the 2 projects run successfully as expected. Okay, now let's talk about the dependencies. So we know there are names given to clean architecture. People say we call it hexagonal architecture, onion architecture, and a whole lot. Okay, the reason it, the domain layer, it is a center because it is independent. It doesn't depend on any layer. The application layer depends on the domain layer for the models, because the domain layer contains the models, the entities. The application layer is going to create the contract, that is our interfaces. Now with the infrastructure, it's going to depend on the application layer. So it's in the hierarchy of what dependency. The infrastructure is going to contain or depend on the application layer for the implementations, because you have the contracts or the interfaces inside the application layer, and you're going to have this implementation inside the infrastructure, and that is where we're going to provide, or we're going to have our database migration in it, the data access layer. That's we're going to have our database migration in it. And now this layer is going to contain the core operation of the interfaces specified in the application layer. Okay, now the presentation layer is going to consume the application layer, whereby the application layer is going to use the infrastructure. Okay, notice that. I don't want to confuse you anymore. Okay, so let's start to do this. So what we're going to do here is, first we go to the main layer, and now this is the independent. Okay, so this is the core of the project. Now here we're going to right click on the application layer dependencies, we are going to add this to the main layer to this. So we need a models to create our contract, our interfaces, isn't it? Now when you're done creating your interfaces, what's the next thing to do? We need to create a contract. I'm going to create a contract or interfaces inside this application, and in that you need implementation. So the implementation is going to happen inside the infrastructure. So I click on infrastructure and I add project references. We're going to add this application layer. So the application layer depends on domain, and now the infrastructure depends on application. You see? And now when it comes to the presentation from the web API, you right click, we're going to use the application layer. So right click on dependencies, add references, then we're going to use this application layer, because this is going to contain the contract or the interfaces. And now we go to the WebAssembly tool, and we're also going to use this application layer. Yeah, so these are dependencies that you need to be set, and now we are good to go. Okay, now we are done with this. Let's talk about why do we have to use clean architecture. So that's the importance of clean architecture. Now with the clean architecture, it encourages a clear separation of concern within the code base. So as you can see from here, we have the separate projects. Now each project has what it needs to do. Example is the application and now the infrastructure. The application is going to contain the interfaces, and now the infrastructure is going to contain the implementation. So you can see that we do not have the interface and implementation together. We have it in a separate form, and it also encourages what? We can break it down, the application, into layers. Clean architecture to promote stability. You can also write unit tests for each layer independently, ensuring that business logics and functionality are thoroughly tested. And also developers can also make changes without rewriting the entire system. So let's go to the infrastructure, and that is where we're going to have our database connection. Okay, that's where we're going to have our data access in there. So right click on this, and we need to install some packages in here. So let's add get packages. You're going to install the EF core and also tools and SQL server. So we need Microsoft.entity-framework-core.tools. Let's install this. Aside from installing this, we need to install SQL server. So we have this over here, SQL Server, and now 8.0.1. Let's install this too. And maybe we can install the EF core itself. So these are the 3 packages that we need for now. So when you go to solution, you check the dependencies, you can see that we have another packages, we have them installed here. Now I'm going to click on this. Then as you can see from here, I'm going to, let's say, copy this package references. Let's copy this. Let's go to the presentation layer, and inside that, I'm going to work on the web API. So you need to include them here. So right click on this web API. Let's go to unload project. Save this. Project unloaded. Click on this again. Now where we have this, let's paste it here, because we're going to definitely need this here for registration. So that's the reason why we have to include these packages as well. Once you're done, right click on this web API and now go to reload project with dependencies. Since you have these packages installed already, it's going to reload them. After that, let's build this solution together. Alright, so while this has been built, let's go to solution. Then we go to our infrastructure, and in here, I hate saying infrastructure, I can say IL, isn't it? IL, and that is it. Okay, so in the IL, that's infrastructure, we're going to right click on this, we click on, let's add folder here, and we can name it this as data. As you know, if you've been following these videos, you know data, what's going to contain. So we need a class, and this is going to be the AppDB context class. So you have to put AppDB context class in here, and this is going to be public, and this is going to inherit from that is a DB context. So we can create constructor for this. Let's pass in the options which inherit from the base. Okay, now once we have this done, let's create our model. Now what do you think the models will be? You know, models are independent, right? That is the business logic. Let's say with this we want to perform CRUD operation on customer, and the customer, we need customer ID, customer name, customer and etc., right? So all these properties must be in a class, and this class what we call as model or entity, and this must be found in the domain layer. So we go to the solution, right click on the domain. Now here we're going to add a new folder to this, and it's going to be entities. So here we need only for customer, because that's what we are doing. So customer, employee, well, anyone, like make it an employee or customer. Okay, so employee will be okay. So we create a class for employee. And now what are some properties that are going to need from employee? This is going to be public. Let me clear this up. So we need maybe ID automatically. For primary key purpose, we need name. Right, so aside from name, what do we need again? Maybe we can have access to address, something like that. Okay, so maybe we're gonna have a string, and that's an address. Okay, maybe let's maintain this. Okay, you can add more to this, but for practical purpose, we want to maintain these 3 properties. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to create a service response, and this response is going to be a DTO, data transfer object that would send data or maybe a response from the infrastructure. Okay, so when an operation is being made, now the outcome of this operation, we have to communicate to the user using this DTO. So we go to solution, and the question is, what do you think is the best place to put the DTO? You know, presentation layer is going to access the application layer. So application layer, it is the right place to put all your DTO so that it can be accessed by the presentation layer. So right click on this, and in here let's add a new folder. We're going to set this DTOs. Now with these DTOs, we can just have a class in there, and we say this is service response. Now with this service response, what are we having? We're going to have just a public class. This is not actually a class. We can make this as record. Then let's specify a flag in here to check the state of the operation that we are just tackling, and also let's have access to maybe an extra message that you want to provide. Okay, so we have this. We don't need any of this here, so we can clear them off. All right, now let's go to solution. So once you have our DTOs in the application layer, we need to create our contract. That's the interface, right? So the same project, we're going to add a new folder to this, and you can name it as contract, you can name it as anything at all that you want. Interfaces, you can do that. Okay, so naming is up to you. Contract. And now with this contract, we're going to add an interface in here. So this is going to be an interface. You make sure you're going for interface, and this is, let's say there's an employee, which is an interface, employee interface. So this must be a public. Let's clear all this up. Okay, so aside from that, we're going to have access to, this is going to be a task, and we have a service response. Then in here we have maybe add. So this is an employee, right? So this add. Let's make it an async. And you know, this is going for this employee from the domain, since this layer, that is the application layer, depends on the domain layer. So we say this is an employee. We can do the same for update async. Update async, and you can have access for delete async. Now with delete async, maybe we're going to look for only ID. Let's make it an ID. Okay, so int ID will be okay for this. And in that we need, let's say, list of employee. So here we can have get async. So it's going to get all employees. Then maybe you can have access to get by ID. So it's not going to be list. So get by ID. Then what do you need to do? Pass in the ID. So these are the contracts, and it is a core duty of this application layer to handle these contracts or the interfaces, whatever that you call it. Yeah. Okay. So once you have this, the next question is, we need to create an implementation, and now we are detaching the implementation from the interface. So the implementation here, that is the infrastructure, has to happen inside the infrastructure project. Okay, and that's the layer. So let's go to the infrastructure in here, and we can create another class, a folder, and we can just write an implementation, etc., etc. So from naming conventions or for names, it's up to you. So let's add a new class, and this is going to be an employee. Okay, so this is an employee. Let's make that repo, so that doesn't look the same as the model. We have this as public, and now since implementation depends on the application, we can go straight ahead and now inherit from this employee. Now it has a method that we need to implement. So using this control period, we can implement our interfaces in here. You see? Good. Now the same infrastructure contains our data, That's an AppDB contest. So we can pass in or inject an AppDB contest here. We can use primary constructed, but for now, I don't want to confuse in here. Let's do the traditional way. So CTOR, let's have our AppDB contest class injected. Contest, then we say it's an AppDB contest control period. We can create and assign field, not properties. Take note. Alright, so once you have this, we need to go to that AppDB contest class, and in here we're going to create a DB set. So DB set, then it's an employee from the domain, and we can have a look at this. So the table name, maybe employees. Okay, now let's go to the repo, that's infrastructure, and now we can start using this. So from add async, what are we doing? We're just going to write, so appdb contest dot employees dot add. Okay, so we're going to add employee to this. Then, okay, so here, let's have a private method in here. So private, and there's async task, and let's say commit or save changes. Okay, now this marks to await appdb contest dot save changes async. We don't want to repeating ourselves. Remember, one principle here is what? Do not repeat yourself dry. So we want to put it here because you're going to be using it often. Then you can say await save changes. That is all. Now out of the delete, we're going to find this in here. So employee is equal to await appdb contest dot find, don't find first, dot employees dot find async. Then we need to provide in the ID. So if this is not, or if it is null, then we can return new service response. Then in here we can have something like false. Then we can say that user not found. But I'm not sure user won't found. User will be found by all means. Else, what are we doing? We're going to remove it. So we're going to say await appdb contest dot employees dot remove. So this remove, we need not to employee will come here, and this we don't have to bring an await in here. Then after that, we call this await save changes async to save it. Then what are we doing? We're going to return new service response, and now here this is going to be true, and we say deleted. Are you getting the idea? Now you have to do the same thing to this. So after adding, we need to return something like added. This depends on you how you want to do it. Let's go to get async. So with this get async, we can just use one line of code to get it. Let's get list. So await, we're gonna have appdb contest dot employees dot as no tracking. Do you have as no tracking in here? Okay, so let's see. Dots, then we can have, so as no tracking, then dot to list async. The reason why we're adding this here is since are just returning a list of employee, and we don't want the EF code to track it because we're not making any changes to release the memory, so we don't want to track it. That's why we have to add this. Get by ID, we can also do same. So we say await. Okay, then with this we can have appdb contest the employees dot find async. Then we can pass in the ID, And here too, we can still use it as no tracking. It gets the ID and now it returns it. It doesn't want to, or we don't want it to track it anymore. So get the ID and I return it. But you can maintain this. And I update async. What are we doing in here? We can have access to appdb contest dot update. Let's specify this employee. Then await save changes async. Then return new service response. This is going to be true. Then you're going to have updated. Okay, so this is what we are doing. Then we have, so this is the implementation. Okay, and now if you check this, this is using the data access layer. That is where we have access to our database connections, the appdb contest. Good, so this is where we have the implementation inside the infrastructure layer. Okay, so now with this is going to be used by only the application layer. Okay, now the API or the presentation layer is not going to use this. The presentation layer is going to use the application layer, whereas the application layer is going to use the domain layer, and the infrastructure layer also going to have access to the application layer, because that's where it has this interface in. So when you call the interface, it's going to call the definition from this infrastructure. And now there you go. So once you're done with this, we need to perform database migration. But before that, you need to create a database connection string, isn't it? You know, from that, you can do that in the web API. Go to app settings. So you can see that all that we've been doing, we are not tackling the presentation layer, because the presentation layer, it is a consumer. So it just consumes the service which has been created. Okay. Now we go to the app settings, and now in here, let's have our connection strings. And in that, you know, let's have a default connection. And we say this is server is equal to, we can have local, we can have our database. So this is demo clean db. So this is a database, don't worry. Okay, so from there we have our trusted connection, trusted underscore connection. Let's set this to true. And then trust server certificate, set this to true as well. Okay, so we have this set. Let's go to solution, program.cs file, and we need to register a database connection. Before I forget, let's register our service in here. So builder.services dot, so add scope. Now for this scope, we need to, we're going to add the I employee. You see, we're coming from the contract in the application layer, and in that we're going to use the infrastructure too as well, and that's going to be the employee repo, and it is coming from employee repo is coming from. So let's go in there and I'll add this dependencies, project reference, infrastructure. So you see, as you know, you see that we're going to use the two, since we're going to derive the implementation here, the interface here, and now with the implementation we have to include this. So all that you need to do here is consume the two in your project. Okay, and that is all for the registration. Okay, so once you have this employee repo control period, we can now use this, and that is all. Okay, now let's go and register our connection. So you're gonna have builder.services.appdb contest. Then you call this appdb contest class that you created, and in that you have to pass an option. I call it O, which marks to O, not 0. O dot use SQL server. And now in that we need to get builder.configuration dot get connection string. What is the name of the connection string here? It is default connection. I believe you remember, right? So let's close this. Now we can just check so we do not make any error here. Let's copy this, go to the program, and let's paste it again. Let's ensure it is exactly what we want. Okay, so now we have this. Next thing we're going to do here is perform migration. Here, one thing I have to take note here is, we have the data access layer in the infrastructure, and now we're going to perform migration onto this API. Okay, so we have to set this as startup project from the web API. Click on package manager console, and now when we get to the down here, default project set to this infrastructure layer. That's where we have a data access layer in. So let's do this, and we say add migration. We say this is first. Now this is going to build the project, and I'll start the migration for us. So I believe you've seen this file before, so I need not to explain much on this, and that is the migration file that has been created, and you're going to put this into an actual thing inside the database. So we're going to update it. So update database, which is going to make it work. Whoa, have you encountered this before? And what did you do? Okay, I know what you have to do here is go to the solution, click on this web API, and on this guy, invariant globalization. Set this to false. I'm yet to find out the reason why it does that. If you know, let me know. So let's go in there and undo it again. Alright, so we wait while it is. Okay, so you can see that it has finished performing the migration in here. Good, and we have the done. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we can close all these tabs in here, close all tabs. So we have a database, we have a data access, we have the interface and its repository created, and it has been registered in the program.cs file. So what you need to do here is consume the application layer, and now in order to consume it, we have to create a controller in the API. So let's go to the API. Right click on this, and we're going for controller, and now with this we're going for new controller, and this is going to be an employee controller, right? So API, we want to have access to read and write actions, so maybe we can use this. And what you should do here is it's going to be employee controller. Yeah, so we have this one. Now in this we have employee, and now this get. So enumerable, and this is going to be, let's make this as public async, and this is going to be tags of, let's make it action results. And now with this it's going to be an employee, so here is going to be an employee, and that is get. Okay, so with this coming from the domain, so we have to use the domain model. And now what we are doing here is we can return. So I believe we know how to implement this controller, isn't it? Yes, since we are done with the interface and implementation, you know how to work with this. Okay, so first one, we are going to inject this in here. As you can see, we inject the interface from the application layer, then we create an instance, and we can have it in here as initialized. The next thing we're doing here is the get method, and here we get the method, so we call this employee. There's the repo, so this is going to be from the application layer, and we get async, which is going to have access to its implementation in the infrastructure, and now get it from the database. Aside from that, we have this get by ID, and we're also doing same in here, as you can see. Now the next thing to do here is this is add, so that's the post from this. This is the payload, and we're going to also get add async from the same API, not the API, the same interface. And let's see the last one. Doesn't have an update. We're doing the same, and that's the delete. Okay, so these are the implementation of this endpoint against the interface that we have created. Okay, so now this is working. Is it working now? It's not yet tested, so how come it's working? Now we've completed this. Let's put this on and I'll check if it is working as expected. So it is ready. We're going to try it out and check it out. So let's go to the post. We're going to post, let's say there's an employee. We're going to add one. So the name is Netcode-Hub. Then we say the address. It's in Ghana. Now let's execute this and see. So execute this. Yeah, so we have the feedback as added from the DTO. Let's see from get API or get employees. Let's see, you're going to have access to that employee. Yes, we have a Netcode-Hub Ghana, right? Now let's see, let's go in for the update. So update, and we know the ID is 1. And here, you know, this is Netcode-Hub. So let's say Netcode-Hub. We're going to add channel to it. And now with the address, we're going to say this is Ghana, Accra, Ghana. And we can talk about West Africa. Okay, so let's execute this. So updated, right? Now let's go again. And now check this out. Get employee, execute this. Yes, and now we have it. When you go to get by ID, you pass in the ID of 1. Execute this. Yes, we have it. Now let's go in there and now delete this. So we pass in the ID of 1, 2, 1. Execute this. Delete it. Now let's go in there now. Check it up. Execute. Nothing found. So when you go to get all employees, you see it is a list. So this is working. So that's a way to implement this layer, clean architecture in the web API service. Okay. Now let's see how to consume this in the client. That's a Blazor WebAssembly. So let's close this. Now if you check, when you check it from the solution, you can see that we've able to tackle one presentation layer. So we can also tackle the next one. But now to do the next one, we have to create our service, right? And now, where do you think this service will be? You know, the presentation layer, it is consuming which layer? The application layer. So it is appropriate to put all your services in the application layer. Okay. So let's see from the, you are done with the API, you can close it up. Then let's go to application layer. We have a contract in here. We have a DTOs. Let's also create one folder for this. And this folder, we're going to name this as, let's say, services, right? It could be client service, it could be any other, right? So this services that we are creating here is going to be general. So any presentation layer or any presentation we want to consume this can use this service and now get going. So within the service, we have to create an interface which encapsulates this one, the contract that we created. So it is going to be an interface, and we're going to say this is I employee service. Okay, so now this employee service, this is going to be public, so we can clear this. And now with this, we can just go to the interface from the contract here. Then let's grab all this. You know, we don't want to type and be wasting time. So let's grab this, go to the employee service, and now paste it here. So it's exactly what we have in here, right? And it is using from the application layer and also the domain layer. All right, so we can just format this well. Let's close this. Then let's go to the same service. We're going to create an implementation for this. So we're going to be a class. Then you're going to say employee service. So this employee service, what do you think? Which interface do you think is going to consume? I know you've done it, right? It's good. I know you're saying that it's going to consume the interface that we just created. And that is which one? Oh, see why I'm doing it. And that is this one, the iEmployee service control period. And even the interface, we're going to create constructor for this. And now with this constructor, you see constructor here, we're going to inject the interface. So which interface are going to inject? We're going to, if you are working with a Blazor server, then we need not to expose an API, isn't it? But since we are not, and we want this to post a message on an API, which is the presentation layer, we have to use an HTTP client, isn't it? So here we're going to use an HTTP client to post a message to an API, okay? Whereby the API from the presentation layer is going to drive the interface from the application layer again, and an application layer also gonna get the data from the domain, using the domain to access data from the infrastructure. So you can see it is interconnected. You see that? Good. Now here, but if I type in HTTP client, we have this one, and we can create an instance control period, and we go to create an assigned field. Okay, so we can format this well. Now from the add async, we're going to create a very simple one. So say var the data is equal to an await HTTP client dot. So this is post JSON async. Let's pass in the route in here. So that's an API / employee. That is all. Then we need to pass in the data, employee data. Now this you have to read the response. So var response is equal to await result dot content first. See what I've written. Oh, so it's data dot content dot read from JSON async, and this is what you want to read in the form of a model. So which model are you looking at? Service response. Then at the end of the day, we're going to return response. So you see this, we're going to do the same thing here. So we can just grab this, we go to the delete async, we're going to paste this in here. So instead of post, this is going to be delete async. Now API / employee, then you have to specify the ID in here, but you have to make it a string interpolation. So use the $, and that is it. This must be an async, as you know. Don't forget, it's very important. And then that is it. We can, this is what get async. With this get async, I'm not sure we can just put just one line. Okay, so let's say await HTTP client dot get from JSON async. We can use this, and we can have access to a list of employee from the domain. Then we can, let me put this on a new line so you can see it well. So list of employee in here, and in this we need to specify an API / employee. That's all that we need to do now. Okay, now the next one here is get by ID. So we can do the same thing. You can just grab this, the next line, and now in here, instead of list, it's just a single model. So we can have an ID. Then in here, we pass in the ID. You see this? Very simple one. Okay, so that's all that we need to do. This must be an async. I know you haven't forgotten, isn't it? And now this, yes, you have it done. The updates, we're going to do the same. So for update, we have to go in for this add method. Now let's come down here. Let's paste this. This must be an async. And now here, it is not post. It's going to be rather what put JSON async. And that is all. Very simple. So we are done with our service. So let's go to the implementation. So we see from here, after creating this, that is all. Now we can change the presentation. You can add project, you can change again, but this doesn't change. All that you need to do here is consume this. So let's do as what you've said. Let's do that. Okay, so let's go in there and consume this. We go to the WebAssembly in here, and now with this too, we're going to consume the application layer. Okay, so in this we go to the program.cs file, and then in here we're going to write without the services dot, there's going to be our scope. Then we need I employee service, I employee service. Then we need what? Employee service. So you can see that here we are consuming only the application layer, not the rest of the layers. Now the rest of the layers are being implemented or consumed by this service that we have created. Remember that this service is also consuming the repo, the interface from the same application layer. So now since we are having different ports, we have to register it in here. So instead of using this base build the host environment.base address, we're going to remove this. And the next thing that we're going to do here is go to the controller. That is the API. If I say controller, that's an API. Go to the properties, line settings, and you can see we have an HTTPS. Let's grab this. We go our app is running on the HTTPS, right? So grab that one. Come to the program, and then in here you need to paste this. Okay. So this is what you need. You set the base address to the API. You can remove this since you are not using the module here. Okay. Now we're done with this. The next thing that we're going to do here is, so since we are working here with having different ports, as soon as we register or we assign the base address to an external base address of an web API, it means when you post a message or request to web API, we have to enable resource sharing. That's the cost, right? So let's say you go to the program. So solution, then you go to, from the web API, you go to program.cs. This one or this one? Yeah, so this one. Now if it's under development, we want to app.useCourse. That is one of the development, but maybe you can also extend it when it's in the, but this is in the development mode, right? So let's enable it here. Now what is an port here? We're going to run on HTTPS, so we don't want to use this. Now we're going to use 7254. Is that so? Go to solution, go to the web assembly project, properties, line settings, and this one is what? 7135. So program 7135. That's the address of the Blazor. And now when you go to, let's see, from the web API, properties, line settings, here it is what? Okay, 7096. So let's grab this. We go to WebAssembly, and now 7096. Yes. And now when you check the program, you can see from here that you allow any method, any header with headers, the header name.content type. Okay, so we want to allow the following. Okay, so once we are done, the next thing that we need to do is what again? We can create a form and start using it in the Blazor WebAssembly project. Very simple one. Okay, so after creating your layers, consuming it in the Blazor or the presentation layer is very simple, isn't it? Good. Now let's go to solution. So from the solution, we, when you check the dependencies from the project, we have the application layer in the registered, right? So let's go to component, then pages. In our home page, let's have a simple one in here. Okay, so we're going to have the add method to see. So code, and now this is going to be, let's say, employee, and now we say this employee, so equal to new. Now let's include this from the entities. We need to design a form, so let's say this is an edit form. Now this edit form, maybe we can use one of our packages that it just uploaded now. Floating dialog will be okay. Okay, so let's try that. So let's go to solution, then right click on dependencies from the WebAssembly, manage NuGet packages, then the browse tab, type in netcode, and I'm going to see all the packages which have been uploaded. What you want to do here is you want to use component validations, this component. Okay, so this package, you install this. Okay, so now it has been installed. Let's go back to the home page, and now let's use the namespace. So at using Netcode-Hub .packages.component .validations. Okay, so you want to use on input event, so you want to verify this. And now in here, in our edit form, let's have our data annotations in here. Okay, now within that, the first thing we're going to do here is I think we should put this into div class, and this is going to be a row. And now in that, we're going to have another div class, and let's make it column LJ6. Let's move this edit form in that. So in here, we're going to have access to the first one is we need an ID. We're not going to provide ID to this, so we need name. So this is going to be test. So you can see this test is a component from the package. Now with this test, we can provide value and etc. to this component. Okay, so let's see what are some of the things that we can use from this. We have display name value, and we want to use floating test. So we have two things here. We have the test and we have floating test. Okay, we want to have a floating div, so floating test. And in the floating test, we can provide some ID such as label. So because we have label, this label here is going to be let's say customer full name, and we can have a placeholder such as John Doe. Oh, not John Das, John Doe. Okay, we can make a copy of this, and now we're going to make this as floating test area. So if you have floating number, then floating test area. Label here, it is customer address. So example here is, so Accra, Ghana, maybe West Africa. That's an example. Okay, and that's what we need to do. Aside from that, we can bind this. So edit form, let's have a model. Now this model is going to be an employee, and if it is unvalid submit, you want to talk about save it. So save. Then what again can we do? We can have bind value. Then bind value is equal to, what do you think? Employee, isn't it? Dot. We need the name. Then we're going to do same to this one. So this is going to be address. You see? Now aside from that, I learned you guys we should just put it in this form. Okay, I think this should be okay. So we can remove this. That is one. Control KD. Okay, we can also do same thing to this one. Label placeholder, and now we can close it here and I remove this tail. Control KD can remove this one. Okay, now once you're done, we need to add this validation, maybe message. Now this message gonna have this for pointing up to employee.name. Then we can just grab this one, and now down here we can also paste this. So instead of the name, there's going to be what? Good, address. I know you guys understand this, isn't it? Okay, then we must have our button, and now this button, we have our class, maybe btn primary, and maybe type here, since it is a form, we can have submit. Then here you can have save. Okay, maybe let's have mt5 mb5. This will be okay. Okay, so we can also have a css class attached to this. If you want to give now space between, you can also have a CSS class attached too. Okay, so maybe in here, let's see what you can do. You can also have CSS class. You can have this class in here, and now this class you can say mb3. Okay, so this is also going to work. Now once you have this, we need to run implementation for this. So save, then async task, save in here. Okay, we have the method. Now let's inject the application layer in here. So at inject, then employee service, then we say this employee. So this we have to include some namespace. Now we have it, so we can just copy this employee. Okay, so we can just make it an EMP. So EMP, that's fine, very simple one. Then here we can say that var result is equal to await EMP dot, you see, so dot add async. Let's pass in this employee. Now this is going to return a result. Okay, so the result that you're going to return, we can check if, or we can apply tuple here to check. So instead of doing this, we can say flag and message, because that's what the service response is coming out from. So we're going to say if flag, what are you going to do? Then if message, what are you going to do? Okay, so before that, let's comment this. Let's also install one of the packages that have been published in the get.org, and this package is going to be modal, or yes, so let's apply or notification. Okay, is it modal notification? Which one do you want us to use? Let's use the toast notification. Okay, so with this, let's see. Let's go to the same dependencies. Right click on this, manage new get packages. No, this is not the API. You don't want the API. Okay, careful. Okay, that's the WebAssembly. So from this, we're going to use toast, this one. Let's install this, apply this. Okay, let's go back again, and now where we have this, we're going to using Netcode-Hub. So using Netcode-Hub dot the same packages in here dot component dot, then we can now use this toast. Okay, so from the toast that we have in here, we have to include this toast, so we include this. Now here we have the duration, so we can say duration here is in milliseconds. So this duration here requires in what? In milliseconds. So we have to specify this in here. So maybe we can have int, then duration, then we can specify this duration like this. Aside from that, what again? We have an icon CSS class. We have, do you want it to persist? Persist. You want to set it to true. I've made a video on how to use this, so if you want to know how to use this very much, know everything, check that video out. Check this video description and you're going to find it in there. Now we also have icon CSS. Yeah, so that's what we want to do. Now aside from that, we need to create a ref, and now this reference attribute is going to be is it toast model. Let's see, before we do toast model, we have to inject this toast service. So at inject, then we have toast service, then we say this is toast service. So now with this toast service, we can then come in here and now say toast service dot toast component, this one. Okay, now this toast service that we have injected, you know what happened? We have to register this toast service. So we go to the program.cs, then beta.services, services.add, you can add scope or singleton any. So then you're gonna have toast service. Okay, so this is what we need to do, and that is also very simple steps. Register it, go to the home page, inject it, and now start using. Very simple. Okay, now the duration that we have in here, we go to say that when it is being saved, and if it is true, then the duration, we're not going to pass in duration. We want to maintain a default one because this has a default duration of 3000 milliseconds. Okay, so that if it is true, you want to just display the toast service. So we can say that this toast service dot, now this is what? True, so it's success, so show success toast. Now in that we can specify the title, and the title is going to be maybe I say success. We can also specify a CSS icon to this, but for now we want to maintain only this. So this is the title, and now the message here is going to be this message. Okay, in case it is false, so you want to say if this is false, this is what you want to do, else do this. So if it is false, we want to set this, maybe this could be, if that is false, this could be warning, so you can set here as alert. Now don't show success, so show maybe warning, or show error toast. Okay, but before that, this duration, we're going to say duration is equal to 5000 milliseconds, then show this, then show the message as well. After that, return. Okay, now that's what we have. Let's run this up and see. So let's set the WebAssembly also. So let's set this as startup. Let's run the web API. And now let's run the WebAssembly. So this is running. Now let's try the WebAssembly too. Yeah, you know, we're having this, right? It doesn't look great because we did not include the Bootstrap class. So from here, we have to include this Bootstrap class. So there's going to be a class. I'm going to say form control. So you need to include this. And now let's add this form control to this. Okay, now here you can also set MB as 3. Now this should get the form refreshed. If it doesn't, then we have to reload this. Oh yeah, so this is what you want to see. So we have this. Let me increase it. Good. So this is okay. Now if I click on there, you can see it's a floating component. So we can have full name. Let's say this Netcode-Hub channel, and this is in Accra, Ghana. Click on save, and now let's wait. Yeah, so you can see it came back flash. It is off. Click on this again. Okay, so you can see we have some notification here, but you can see it didn't even wait. Do you see that? So let's edit it well. Then we're going to, let's go to the page in here for the duration. We're going to set this to, when this is through, this is going to delay 5,000. And default one is what? So you can set the default one to 4,000 milliseconds. Let's save this. Let's try this again. So I'm going to type in Frederick and Accra, Ghana. So click on save. Now let's see. Yeah, so success added, right? Good. So you can see it's been there for a while. Let's say when we have, what can we even do? We did not check if the file is already found. So let's see. Let's go to the repo. Let's go to our infrastructure layer implementation, and now before we do add in here, we want to check. So before we add, we're going to check. So var check equal to await. Okay, db contest dot employees dot, let's use first or default, whereby the name, let's say dot lower, okay, is equal to this employee dot name, employee dot name dot to lower. So here we are checking to see if we have the same data in there. So we're gonna check if check is not equal to null. If check is not equal to null, what you want to do, you want to return new service response, and it's going to be false. Okay, and now with this false, you're going to say that user already exists. Else we do this, control save. Now let's do this again. So we have to rerun this. Let's stop. I think all this. I want to stop them. Okay, then let's stop the API too. Now let's do it again. So we're going to build all together. Build solution. So build. We're going to run this WebAssembly. Whilst it is running, we check and now run the web API as well. So debug this, start without debugging. So you can see that our API is ready. Now the data that we have been added, we click on get employees, try this out, and we must see everything in here. Let's wait and see. Making a query from the database. Now let's check it out. Yes, you can see we have the same thing, everything 1 to 7. Let's go in and delete everything from here. Maybe you can also implement bulk delete, right? Here you need to delete it one after the another. That's very sad. So 2, we can delete this. We have 3. We can delete this. When I check the response, deleted. We have 4. We can delete this. Deleted. We have 5. Delete this. Deleted. We have 6. Deleted. Deleted. We have 7. Execute this. Deleted. Let's go for 8. Execute this. These are not found. Okay, so it means you are done. Now let's try this and see. So when I click on get employee, execute this, you can see there's nothing here. We're going to add one. So Netcode-Hub channel. Then there's going to be an Accra, as you know, Ghana, as you know, West Africa, as you know. Right, so click on save. That's what happened. So success added, right? Good. When you go to execute this, because now we have this here. Now let's click on it again. So if I click on this, what happens? Alert, user already exists. And now this is going to delay for about 5 seconds before it finishes. Check it again, because the reason why it is doing it is when you check this, we set the duration here, we catch the duration from the home.razor. And now if it is false, you want to set the duration, you want to add 1 second to it. By default it's 4 seconds, so if it is true, show 4 seconds, if it is false, show 5 seconds. Okay, so now we have this. Now let's go for the update and now delete. It's a very simple one, so that's what we're doing. Now this is for update. If I click on this, if I want to update this, is it possible? It means we have to first get the list, right, of the day of the employees. So maybe we can get the list down here, or you can see this column 6. So the other 6, we're going to display the list in there. So we have a div class, and this is column LG6. Now this LG6, let's get a list from this. So we must have a method to get it when the page loads. So override. Then we can have on initialize async. We can have a list of this employee. So employee, then we're gonna say employees is equal to new. You see? So you want to have this employee must come from the domain. Not our employee. This must be an employee from the domain. Yes, so we have this. When the page initializes, we are saying that this employees is equal to await emp. Oh, see what I've done. So await emp 123 off to emp dot get async. So when the page runs or loads, you can have access to this. Then in here, we're going to loop through. So you're going to say that if employee dot is not null, that's how you want to perform this. Okay, then I'm going to loop through this. So for each var item in employees, you want to have a table. So let's have a table in here. So table class, and this table striped. Then you have our t head, and I have a tr, then t head. The first one you're gonna have an id, you're gonna have name, then th again, we're gonna have what again? We have ID, we have name, we're gonna have address. Then maybe the last part, we're gonna have th, maybe action, so we can delete it, isn't it? Okay, now aside from the t head, we can have t body. Then with the t body, we're gonna have our tr. So first t, are gonna have our td. Okay, so inside this td, that's where this has to come in. So this is coming in from the t body. Then within the tr from the first row, we can paste it in here. Control KD. Okay, so the t body here, we're gonna have item.id. We can make a duplicate of this. Then we can talk about name. Talk about what? Addresses, isn't it? Good. The last one is the button. So td, and now with this td, we must use maybe delete, update and delete, right? So let's have button, or even not button, let's use button. So this is going to be class btn info and btn sm small, and in here we're going to say edit. We can just make a copy of this again. Then instead of the info, this is going to be danger, and now we're going to say delete. You can also use an icon to do that. So when this is clicked, so at on click, we can have access to edit clicked. We have to pass in this item. Okay, but this must be a method that we can point out to. It's a function, and we also going to do same. So we can just copy this from here, then from the delete. So instead of saying edit click, what I'm going to say add it. Perfect. Delete clicked. Okay, so you're saying we need only an ID, we can just pass in only ID or even the model. Well, we can pass in this item dot ID. Okay, so this is what we're doing. Now let's have definition for this method down here. So if this is void, if this is clicked, we are accepting an employee emp, and now with this we're gonna call this var result is equal to await emp dot. So with this, okay, you're not using this, let's make this an employee. So this is incoming emp. I think this will be okay, incoming employee. So await emp dot, then we can have access to this is edit, right? So we're going to edit this, but before we edit this, it is unless the person clicks on save before we can get this. So there's an edit, so we're going to say that employee is equal to this incoming emp. That is all. Then we can just use this lambda to handle this. Okay, that is when edit is clicked, so no need for async. What of if delete is clicked? So delete clicked, and now this needs an ID. So with this ID, we're going to call this so result, or let's use the tuple flag and message. So it's equal to await emp dot delete. So emp dot delete async, we pass in the ID. Okay, so when you are done, instead of refreshing the page, we can extract this method. We can extract this method in here, and I'll say this is private async task get data, point type to this one like this. Then when the page loads, we call this await get data, and that is all. We can also use lambda expression to point this up to remove all these brackets. Okay, so get data. As soon as it calls it up, then await get the data again. You see? So as soon as get the data again, maybe you can implement status change, or the page will just get itself refreshed. If it doesn't refresh, then we're going to implement status change. That is for delete. Okay, now as for the update, now if I click on save, we first have to check. So if employee.id is greater than 0, it means we're going to update it. Then we can now call this. Okay, so in order to handle this one, I think we have to create so var response. Okay, so let's say var response is equal to new service response. So service response is defined application layer, and yes, it has to be found here. Okay, so with this, we're gonna say response is equal to, okay, add async. That is, if id is greater than 0, then we're going to add this. Whoa, come back. Yes. Else, then we're going to say service response is equal to add async. So here we're going to make it as what? Dot update. So emp dot update async. Then do this. Then the last here, we can check if response dot flag in here. Okay, so if this is false, then we're gonna use response dot message. Very simple one. Okay, so response equal to new response. We check in new service response, and now this service response, I think we have to, since this is a record class, we cannot instantiate like this. So maybe we can, what can we even do? So maybe we can pass in something that like false defaultly, and now it is message is null. Okay, so you can pass in like this. Let's save this. Okay, so we must have, and now response dot message here must work. Response dot message. Okay, so now let's wait. Let's run this and see. So I save this. Let's run this again and check it out. Alright, so you see that we have the data in here. Let me minimize a little bit. Yes, so let's add one more, and this is going to be Frederick. Then still in Accra. Click on save. It has been added, but you don't see it here, do you? You don't, because we did not call this. Let's see. So after I save this, after this working perfectly, what do I need to do? If this is false, we do this. Else, we have to call this method. Where is it? Get data. So we can get the current data from the database. So rebuild and save changes and do it again. So we have it in here. Now let's add one more. So your name. So my dear friend, your name, put your name here, and your location, put it there for me. I'm watching. So click on save, and you can see now we have it in here. If I click on delete, let's see what happens. So I click on this, edit this, you can see I have it in here. And if I click on Accra, maybe let me change to Kumasi, and that is in Ghana as well. Click on save, and now update it. But you see, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, it hasn't reflected. Have you seen? So you've seen that the edit is working, the add is working. Now let's talk about delete. If I click on delete, yeah, I can see it doesn't. Maybe let's refresh this and see if number 10 will still be there. Yeah, so it is no more. So as we delete, we should call this to get notified, right? Now let's also work on that. So for the delete, after deleting this, we call this data, and we have to include state has changed. Now let's see. So let's delete the last one. So delete, yeah, I can see it is off, right? It is off. Let's add it again. So Netcode-Hub channel, and this is in Ghana. So add this, and it hasn't added in here. Added. Okay, but if I click on delete, nothing happened. Let's see. So Netcode-Hub channel 1. Save this. You see, if I click on delete, nothing happened. It just vanishes. If you want to confirm this, then what can you do? We can also implement a component in there that I have created. Let's see. And we want to confirm. Do you want to delete this before it gets deleted, isn't it? Let's install the modal component from netcode.org. So let's go to solution. Then right click on dependencies. The same place. We have to close this. Let's do it again. Manage NuGet packages, and in here you can see we have modal. So we're going to use this modal. Click on install to get this installed. Okay, now this is done. We go back to the home page, and now with this home page, we're going to use this confirmation component. So let's go in there and add the namespace. So at using netcode-hub.component, or the packages.component dot then modal. So once you're done, what you should do here is to include this modal dialog. So we can just put it down here. So we have a modal dialog. Let's see. So we have this bootstrap class, this, then custom style. Okay, so we're making a reference here, and now in order to do it, we have to create a reference down here. So confirmation, there's a component and confirmation, and we're going to create. You're going to provide an instruction for this. So custom instruction. I actually want to do this. You can decide to also change this. Okay, so that's the instruction. And for the handle, we can show maybe a confirmation. I think so. So here so if I click on accept, okay, if I click on confirm, this event is going to get fired. Okay, so in order to do this, we have to create an event to handle this. Let's copy this. Then down here we can have void, so handle, and now this return nothing. So in here, if I click on confirm, that is when you want to start working with this. So that's delete. If I click on delete, where is this one? So if I click on delete, I want to call this. So here, the first thing to do here is, if I click on delete this, I must display the pop-up, isn't it? So we can say confirmation dot show. Okay, so we have the message specified in here. This is a message. I just want to do this. So if I click on this, this is going to show. Now after this getting shown, it's going to ask you a question. I just want to do this. If I click on yes, that is where this is going to get fired. This is going to get fired. So you're going to put this in here. Let's see, is this an await? This is not an await. Okay. So, and this must be an async, and this could be a task. You see? So, and with this, we have a flag is equal to this, an ID. So with this, you need to provide an ID for this. Very simple one. Okay. So we can have this property. And this is going to be delete ID. So if I click on this, I'm going to assign this. This equal to this ID. I'm going to assign this. So when I'm done, after showing up and confirming true, then I'll pass in the ID here. You see? Then after state being changed, I'm going to clear this, or after this, I'm going to clear this ID. It's equal to 0. You see? So maybe this is what I can do. Maybe for sake, I can check if ID is equal to 0, then I want to return. So this is what we are doing. Very simple one. Okay. Now once you have this, we're going to have a confirmation pop up from this angle. After we click on confirmed, this is going to get fired. When we click on cancel, nothing happens. As soon as you click on confirm, this is going to get fired, and it's going to call this method to delete it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this is ready. Now let's see. If I click on delete, I must have the pop-up. But you see, I'm not having the pop-up in here. You see that? And do you know the reason why? Because we've left one out. Let's go to the solution in here. We go to the WebAssembly. Go to www root folder. Is that so? Not that. Go to, let's check it and see. You can see our index.html. And here we need to include the script. So put it on top in here. So this is a script reference. So content / netcode-hub.packages.components.model, then model.js. So now save this. And now let's rebuild this and check it out. Alright, so it is ready. Now let's go and now check it out. So I click on delete. Oh yeah, I have it. I actually want to do this. Click on close. Nothing happens. You see what? As soon as I click on confirm, see? Yeah, it is off. So it has been deleted. Check it again. Now when you reload this, check it out. It's no more. I can keep adding the next one. Netcode-Hub. Then custom address, maybe Ghana as a whole. I click on, save this. That means added. Now I can add one more. I can also add this too, and you can see it keeps adding. Now I click on delete. I just want to do this. Confirm it is off. I have to close this. Do this again. Confirm it is off. And I have to clear this. Confirm, and it is off. That is it. Isn't that nice? Yeah. So that's a way to integrate this, looking at this clean architecture. So we've implemented it with two presentation layers. That is for the API and also the WebAssembly. Maybe in case you do want to add another presentation layer, a presentation, there's going to be a Blazor or Blazor hybrid. Then you go to the same folder. That is a presentation folder. And now we add it in there. So on your project, you're going to have only 5 or 4 projects. Is it 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3, 4 projects. Okay. So you're going to have 4 projects. But within the presentation layer, you can also have multiple projects in here. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this, and I believe you've learned something. Yeah, so you can click on the like button to like this video and help this channel as well. You can also subscribe if you haven't done that. Check the video playlist because we have a lot of goodies for you. I'm going to catch up in the next video. Till then, take care.